We now return to Part 2 of Fallout on Mr. Waugh Media. Alright, with the main build now fully out of the way, it's time to get down to the painting segment. For this one, we're just going to slather black acrylic paint over the entire surface to give it a nice priming coat. The only part to watch out for is the glass. If you do get on there, don't worry about it, just wipe it off and, yeah, just go nuts. Now, I'm going to start working on the barricade first just to get it out of the way because it's one of the fastest pieces. And a lot of the theory that you're seeing in this one is going to be applied to the main build as well. For this one, I've dry brushed brown over the entire surface once the black has fully dried. Make sure it's fully dried first. Once that's done, I'm going to go in with 1 part brown and 1 part golden yellow to make a nice sandy color. I'm going to dry brush this across pretty much all the surfaces. Doesn't matter if you get on the metal or the wood, it's just going to, look apocalyptic by the end. After giving that a little bit of time, I've gone in with that same sandy white color and added a little bit of white to make a lighter sand. And this is getting dry brushed across everything. When it comes to the wooden panels, make sure you don't go with the grain, go against the grain to really make the grains pop out. You'll get something looking like this. Alright, for this one, we've added just a little bit more white to really make it pop out, and doing a very light dry brush. At this point, you're pretty much just doing a dusting across the surface. Till you get this. Next up, we're going to go in and take some gunmetal color. For this one, it's called Lead Belchers from Citadel Paints. And we're going to lightly dry brush that across all the metallic parts. So for me, it's going to be the middle panel there where we got the wavy cardboard. I'm going to put a little bit on the screen door to give it sort of a metallic look. And I've also glued a piece of cardboard across the screen door there to make it look like a piece of metal was just bolted in place. That got a little light dry brushing as well. Until I have this. Next up, we're just going to glue some flock all over the base. I'm going to do a couple dabs here and there of white glue, smear it around a little bit, and then we're going to just pour the flock on. Nothing overly complicated here. If you want to go for a snow tundra or some different looks, that's up to you how you want to base this piece. I like to make mine brown sand with a little bit of the grass for a uniform look. Now on to the main building. For this one, I've taken 3 parts black and 1 part white to make a dark gray color, and this is going to be dry brushed across the majority of the surface of the entire building. Once that's dried, I've gone in with 2 parts black to 2 parts white to make a medium gray color, and this is going to be dry brushed again across all the surfaces, but I'm doing it almost like a little sponge as I go along. It's not going to be across the entire thing, but in little patches here and there. And I'm going to be using this same technique as we go further and further. The lighter it gets, the wider my spread is going to be with this sponging, in quotation marks here. Now, in theory, you could use a sponge itself, but I find that my paintbrush works just as well because I'm doing these little blotches here and there. It just comes down to brush technique, and you just sort of pick it up as you go along. But once you get the hang of it, it goes relatively quickly. Next up, I'll take 3 parts white to 1 part black and continue my dry brushing / sponging motion. If you want to try to get some practice in, I might recommend just getting a sheet of cardboard and once you've primed it black, go to town on it and just sort of see what kind of techniques you can come up with and find what spread you like. Maybe you do want it to be a bit darker or a little bit lighter, totally up to you to experiment. For me, I've sort of gotten into a groove with how I want this to look, and I think overall, this actually has a very convincing concrete look to it. What do you guys think? Alright, with that out of the way, I'm going to go in and start touching up the metallic areas. For this one, I've gone back to my lead belchers, aka the gunmetal color. I'm going to put it over any metallic surface. So I've got this, air conditioning thing in the back here, whatever you want to call it. Some of the window panels that got blown out, we'll get a little light dusting as well. I might put a little bit on the ladder if it needs it, if I got a little paint on there, and the pipe on the outside as well. I'm going to just touch up the guardrail there a little bit, and the little drain pipe on the side. Ta-da! Next up, I'm going to work on the wooden panels. I'll just do a dry brushing of dark chocolate brown on there. And there's different ways you can do this, obviously. If you've seen my other episodes on painting wooden panels, there's a couple alternative takes there. For this one, I'm keeping it relatively simple and just doing multiple coats of brown, progressively getting lighter and lighter. Speaking of, we're now going to take our 1 part dark brown to 1 part sandy color to make that lighter color. That'll be dry brushed across the surface. Again, yada, yada, yada. Make sure you don't go with the grain, go against the grain. Wax on, wax off. And Bob's me uncle. Yeah. All right, we've added a little bit of white to the mix now to make that lighter sand color. And once again, dry brushing it across the surface to really make the grains pop out. Huzzah. Now I'm going to go in with pretty much just pure white at this time and dry brush that lightly across the boards to give it a really nice finish. Shh, this next part is super top secret because we're going on the internet to find war posters and propaganda material, as well as pieces from the Fallout universe. For this one, any image I liked I just printed out and then mounted on some cardboard. To really tie it all together, I gave a light dusting across the surface to make it look more decrepit and aged. Now, I wanted a good Motel sign, so I actually found this one. I think this was actually from the Fallout game. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one. But it's a nice little piece. It's about 2 inches tall and about 5 inches wide. Now, obviously, you can shrink it or stretch it out before you print it. In the corners, I noticed there is some of the white showing through. I'm going to just go over that with some black and grays later on. It shouldn't be too big of a deal. Now, I'm just going to finish this off by cutting out the cardboard here. It's going to be 5 inches by 2 inches. I'm going to make it match the sign on the front. And once I have it and they look about the right size, I'm going to go in with the white glue and mount the two together. Just know, because it is paper and cardboard and it's getting wet, it is going to warp them. So just flatten them before you go any further and you should be fine. You'll get something like that. Now here I'm just going to take the super glue and mount it to the roof of the building. And even though there's a little bit of a warping going on, this should straighten it out because it's now bolted firmly in place. Ta-da! And just like that, the exterior of the building is fully complete. But you might be wondering, that's the outside. What about the inside? For that, we're going to start working on the flooring. For this, I found a checker pattern and I printed it out, and I'm going to cut it down so it's 4 inches by 4 inches for both of the rooms. Now, when you're putting this into place with the white glue, just make sure you watch out for any warping and bubbling, and you should be fine. Now, while this one in particular dries, I'm going to go over to the second one, and I painted the interior walls in that same concrete color. I put in some window panels for this particular model, and some red beds just to, I don't know, make the whole thing look interesting. And speaking of interesting, I also had time to make an outhouse out of balsa wood and coffee stir sticks. It's a relatively simple structure, just glued together. The little TP roll is made out of a staple and a thin sheet of paper coming off of it. Now, this was actually the first building that I worked on. This was Rita's Cafe, and I really wish I had filmed it, but this was well before I started doing any of the YouTube stuff. It's where I first started working with the shattered glass, the checkered pattern on the floor, and tons of accessories on the inside to really bring this piece to life. At the same time, I also worked on the gas station with boarded up windows and grimy look on the exterior. The amount of accessories to really make this look like a lived-in environment. And this has been my passion project. This is Fallout. Well, that's been today's episode. We really hope that you enjoyed it as much as we did. But now Mia's gotta go deal with those flesh-eating monsters out there. We'll make sure she gets some supplies. If you like the video, she'll go out with one of these. It's not much, but it's better than nothing. But if you like and share the video, we'll make sure she has one of these. That should help a lot. But if you like, share, and subscribe, she's going out packing this baby. That's right, that should even the odds. But if you don't love Mia at all, well, she's got to go out with a fork. Just a fork. And you don't want Mia to die out there, do you? No, of course you don't. So make sure you like, share, and subscribe to our video and tell all your friends about the awesome web series. I've been Mr. Waugh from Mr. Waugh Media. Good night!
Yeah! The way we hold it down, pound for pound, like a pit full bound. Hear the sound of the whole crowd